The freighter smelled of rust and recycled air. On its lower deck, in a storage locker that had been crudely converted into a cell, a young alien girl pressed herself into the darkest corner. Her skin, a deep shade of amethyst, was dull with fear and grime. The two traffickers, rough-looking Grell from the outer colonies, argued in guttural tones over the Cums unit, their deal with a crime syndicate having gone sour. They were debating the value of their cargo versus the cost of disposal. The girl did not understand all their words, but she understood the tone. She pulled her knees tighter to her chest, her large, silver eyes wide. The airlock on the far side of the deck hissed open. A man stepped through, the environmental seals on his patched-up worksuit breaking with a sigh. He was human, older than. His movements suggested, with a calm, worn face that had seen too much of the galaxy's darker corners. His name was Elias. He was a freelance cargo hauler, and he was here because the freighter's automated distress call had pinged his route. A call about a life support failure. He saw the Grell first. Their argument ceased as they turned, hands going to the pulse pistols at their belts. "This is a private vessel," the larger one snarled. Elias kept his hands visible. "Picked up your distress signal. Life support failure. A glitch. It's fixed. Now leave." But Elias's eyes had already slid past them to the locker door. A small, three-fingered hand was visible through the bars of the ventilation slit. He felt a familiar, cold anger settle in his gut. He had seen this before. "What's in the locker?" he asked, his voice deceptively mild. "None of your business, human. Your kind has no jurisdiction here." Elias took a slow step forward, opened the door. The Grell drew their weapons. The shots that followed were bright and loud in the confined space. Elias was not a soldier, but he was a survivor. He moved with a practical, unspectacular efficiency, using cargo crates as cover. His own weapon, a heavy industrial stunner, was not meant for killing, but it packed a wallop. One Grell went down twitching. The other, in his panic, missed his shot and hit a power conduit. Sparks rained down, and the lights flickered dot in the chaos. Elias was at the locker. He fired the stunner point-blank at the crude electronic lock, frying it. The door slid open. The girl inside shrank back, a faint, terrified chirp escaping her. Elias knelt, placing his weapon on the floor. He spoke softly, the universal translator, in his suit rendering his words into basic trade language. "I am not here to harm you. My name is Elias. Can you come with me? It is not safe here." Her silver eyes searched his face. Perhaps she saw the absence of cruelty there, or perhaps she was simply out of options. She uncurled and placed her slender hand in his. He led her back to his ship, a modest vessel named the Wayfarer. He did not look back at the disabled freighter or the unconscious Grell. He sent a coded alert to the nearest Coalition patrol beacon, anonymous, and plotted a course away from the sector. On the journey to the nearest safe port, he learned little. Her name was a soft, melodic sound he could not perfectly replicate, so he called her Lily for the gentle color of her skin. She was of the Kalan, a reclusive species from a system far coreward. She had been taken from a research outpost. She did not know where her family was not at the port. Elias faced a choice. He could leave her with the overwhelmed and bureaucratic Interspecies Welfare Office, where a lost Kalan child would be a file among millions. Or he could do something profoundly foolish. He looked down at Lily, who had silently taken to following him everywhere on the ship, her large eyes watching his every move. He sighed. "All right, then," he said. "Just for a little while." A little while became years. Elias could not find her people. The Kalan were notoriously private, and his inquiries went unanswered. So he raised her. He taught her galactic standard, showed her how to navigate by the stars, how to repair a fusion coil, and how to tell if a merchant was lying. He shared stories of a blue-green world she had never seen, of oceans and forests, and a stubborn species that refused to accept the universe's indifference. She, in turn, taught him patience, and showed him a wonder for the cosmos he had long since forgotten. She was a quick study, brilliant and observant. But there was a quiet sadness in her, a homesickness for a home she could not name. On her 18th standard year, a breakthrough came. A Kalan diplomatic vessel, responding at last to his decades-old queries, arrived at a station where they were trading. The officials aboard, tall and elegant with the same amethyst skin, were astonished. The girl they called Lilina, lost scion of a royal lineage, was alive. The parting was a quiet, profound hurt. Elias knelt before her, now taller than him. "You go and be who you are meant to be," he said, his voice rough. "Remember, the stars are the same wherever you are." She touched his face, a Kalan gesture of deep respect and affection. "My first and greatest teacher," she said. "My home is where I learned to be brave. That is here with you." Then she was gone, escorted onto the gleaming ship. The wayfarer felt cavernously empty that 20 years passed. Elias grew older. His hair turned fully gray, and the old injury in his knee spoke louder on cold days. He still flew, though his routes were simpler, quieter. He thought of Lily often, with a bittersweet pride. He hoped she was well. He was on a backwater world called Thaxton's Rest, bartering for water filters when the sky changed. First came the deep, harmonic hum that made the air vibrate. Then the shadows, long and dark, as a fleet descended from the clouds. Not a warlike fleet, but a majestic one. Sleek silver vessels with elegant, sweeping lines, unlike any human design, settled around the dusty spaceport. On their hulls was a crest, a stylized amethyst blossom. Port authorities scrambled. Rumors flew. An alien armada, a queen's procession, a diplomatic incident. Elias watched from the doorway of his ship, a feeling he could not name stirring in his chest. A delegation emerged from the largest vessel. Port officials bowed and scraped before a tall, imposing figure in robes of iridescent gray, a delicate crown of light upon their brow. The queen of the Ka-El-En, her procession moved through the port with serene authority. And then it stopped. The royal guard parted. The queen turned, her gaze sweeping across the crowded bay. Her eyes, large and luminous silver, passed over the officials, the merchants, the spectators, and landed on the old human leaning against a weathered cargo ramp. She stood still for a moment. Then, in a move that shocked her retinue, she lifted the hem of her royal robes and walked, not with stately grace, but with swift, purposeful strides. She crossed the dusty tarmac, leading her stunned guards and the portmaster scrambling behind. She stopped before Elias. He looked up at her, this majestic alien ruler. He saw the lines of time and wisdom on her face, the weight of a crown. And then he saw the faint, familiar pattern of freckles across her nose bridge and the unchanging silver of her eyes. Her regal composure softened. She smiled, a human expression she had learned long ago. "Teacher," she said, and her voice, though filtered through a translator, was the one he remembered, layered now with power and warmth. Elias, after a stunned moment, gave a slow, respectful nod. "Your Majesty, you look, well." A flicker of amusement crossed her features. "The years have been kind to us both." She looked past him, at the wayfarer, older and more worn than ever. "I have spent 20 years learning statcraft, history, and quantum politics. I have unified clans and spoken before the Galactic Coalition. But the most important lessons I ever learned were on that ship. Lessons of integrity, of quiet strength, of a kindness that asks for nothing." She turned to the portmaster, who was pale and trembling. "This man," she said, her voice carrying to all assembled, is Elias of Terra. He is, under Kalan law and in my heart, my father. Any honor given to me is an honor given to him. Any debt owed to me is a debt owed to him. She looked back at Elias. The formality fell away, leaving only the girl he had pulled from the dark. I have come a long way to find you. My people have a saying. The root remembers the soil. I have never forgotten my soil. Elias found his voice, thick with emotion. What happens now, Lily? She offered her hand, not the three-fingered gesture of a queen, but the open-palmed reach of a child, trusting him to lead. Now, you come home with me. If you will. There is a palace with a hangar that has a very fine view. I think an old noble ship would look perfect there. And its pilot, his counsel, is what I need most. Elias looked at her hand, then at his own, calloused and stained with engine grease. He placed it in hers. The galaxy, vast and cold, had turned in a strange, beautiful circle. The rescued had become the rescuer. The student had become the queen. And the lonely old man, by a simple act of kindness done under a stranger's sun, had found his way home. He nodded, and together they walked toward the silver ships, under the watchful eyes of two very different worlds.